What's up, everybody? Welcome to Stackin Sats, presented by Force-Based Mining. Welcome back. It's been a little bit. For those of you who don't know me, I am Plamenko and Matthias. I am your host here, and this is a podcast where we talk about all things Bitcoin. Today, you won't be surprised to see a special guest returning. His name is Matthias Debernardini, and we had him on the pod back in January of this year. Matthias has really climbed and done some pretty awesome things in the Bitcoin community since then. So we wanted to take the time to highlight his work and his process as a software engineer in Bitcoin. We go over mining conferences, since this episode was recorded just a little bit after Bitcoin Miami. And then we jump into the nitty and the gritty, the things that Matthias is just a nerd about. We're talking about Lightning. We're talking about FediMint. And then we go into a little bit more about Matthias's journey, starting his new career with AnchorWatch. As always, this is not financial advice. Please enjoy my conversation with Matthias Debernardini. So weird to have my nuts out so freely. I can't do this, none of this. What if I did it up here? Then I just feel like I'm an old man.
You feel like you're man.
Oh, well, basically, we're going to jump into it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Stackin Sats, presented by Force-Based Mining. I'm your host, Plamenko and Matthias. It's been a while since I've stepped into the studio, and this is going to be a special episode because I got Matthias with me for round 2.
Yep.
Heck yeah. Happy to have you here, Matthias.
Happy to be here.
We were mentioning earlier, basically just talking about buff dudes in Bitcoin. I feel like it's a good segue to just jump right into Bitcoin Miami. And how was your experience?
I mean, my experience there was, it was good. I really enjoyed everyone I met. And what I really enjoyed the most though was Pleb Lab. It was the first time I'd ever gone, and what was great was just seeing all the builders and all the projects that they're working on.
What exactly is Pleb Lab?
So Pleb Lab is this conference that sorry, not Pleb Lab, PlebFi.
PlebFi, gotcha.
There's also Pleb Lab. That's in Austin, Texas. PlebFi is this conference started by Jeremy Rubin. It was around the time that he was trying to rally everyone around his new soft fork opcode proposal for CTV, and he wanted to just get a bunch of builders in and just like try to explain CTV to them and get them to just make cool shit with it. There's like a hackathon. It's in Wynwood, so it's like a really nice area.
Yeah.
And just a lot of really, really great people. I just got to meet just so many awesome people I've already follow on Twitter that follow me. Got to meet new people. We connected, and it's always great to see potential opportunities of how we can work together. So that PlebFi was my favorite part, honestly.
You were there a lot. I think it took about 3 days or so for us to finally link, because you were just at PlebFi drinking Coronas, talking to Ordinals and meeting other devs.
Yeah, no, I definitely did try to spend as much time as I could there. But again, there's always just so much to do that week. Everyone's in town. You want to hang out. And so it was a great experience. But Bitcoin Miami was great. It's always great to see who's still there during a bear market, after a bull market, because during a bull market, everyone shows up, it's cool. It's like you see all this excitement, but then, the excitement kind of quells a bit, and you really get to see who's serious. And then you see it's like, okay, that company, I didn't think they were going to make it, and they didn't.
Well, for personal experience, you and I both working with DLI and the large amounts of money that our company had spent marketing just for us to not be here with them a year later kind of speaks to what you're saying.
This is, and I feel like we just sort of saw the worst of it. I'm sure there were other companies there that, really did have something interesting and, were working really hard, but just maybe couldn't cut it, or they didn't manage the finances well enough and just ran out of money.
Population-wise, it was way less.
It was like 10,000, I heard.
Yeah, compared to 30,000 year before.
Yeah.
So from like my perspective, I'm still with a company. We're still looking to sell our services and whatnot, and we're looking to make business.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, it was a little bit tougher.
Mm-hmm.
Not having a booth also makes it tougher because you don't have just like the central point where people are coming up to you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do conversation over and over. So from my perspective, you could see a little bit more of like the hunt. You could see the other brokers, everyone was really serious and intent on doing business and making some money while they were there. And in the meantime, I just felt like Matthias was just like in paradise, going from one person to the next, speaking about projects. So I did want to ask you a little bit about how does it feel being a dev going to a conference versus last year when you were with DLI and you had to represent something to sell?
No, exactly. I got my ticket for free. I got an industry pass ticket for relatively minor contribution that I made to FediMint. And I spent a good amount of time at the open source stage, make sure I got to meet people. I saw but I saw a really cool project that we're going to talk about later, Liana Wallet. And it's really just so much better to talk about, potential projects that you can work on rather than just like try to hammer down a business deal, which that's fun too. That's good too. That's why you're there. But for me, that's just easier to talk about. Trying to sell yourself in the crypto space, it's hard. Like you don't want to come off as like scammy. You think you may have value to offer, but communicating that in a way that isn't like really forward, it is tough. And also it's like you want to get to know the person first. And that takes time. It's like, what are your problems about? And if you're just there to sell, you're just going to try to like skip over that. And then people can tell, it's like, oh, you're really just here to just, sell me something. So from a dev perspective, it's always just like way more fun. I we got to meet Patrick, in Penguin Academy.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Holden.
Mm-hmm. I got to, really the conferences, the reason why the conferences are important, is because the whole world of Bitcoin is online and all you ever see are just like avatars, but when you show up to the conference, you see that it's real people. And, once you finally get to connect in person, it just makes the online interaction that much more fun.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So from that perspective, I, highly recommend. I think they're going to keep doing the open source contributor project. So for anyone there that has like Python skills or JavaScript, Rust or C++ skills, Java as well, there's tons of projects for you to contribute, and then you can learn how to work in a big project like that, which is really, if you're trying to break into development, is a really good way to do that. And it'll also, you just start putting yourself out there. So I highly recommend for anyone that's listening, if you think you want to do that, feel free to reach out, and I'll point you to some really interesting projects that are high impact that you can contribute to, and you can win. You can earn a ticket to Bitcoin Miami, which is fun.
You're a lot more resourceful in your education of Bitcoin and orange pilling.
Yeah.
It felt like, yeah, you're willing to share the enthusiasm and spread it now. And that's a really key component. I know Bitcoin is all about self-research, self-discovery, this personal journey.
Yeah.
People don't work that way. People generally need someone to spark an interest in them.
Totally. And sometimes you can do a lot of self-discovery and self-research, but just not really find out about opportunities. And the best way to do that is to put yourself out there, say hi to people, start talking to them. And, if you show up with good intentions, people will want to help you. And there's just no shortage of work to be done that people are willing to pay for. There's one really good initiative called the Open Sats project. If you're a C++ developer, you should really look into that. You can do they'll pay you 6 figures for a whole year and have you work on Bitcoin Core. That can be a really good product, because if you work on Bitcoin Core for a whole year, you can then there's a real shortage of C++ developers worldwide. So
is that still a language that's popular, useful?
It's definitely still useful. It's still widely used. If you want to target a specific embedded device, C or C++ is your best bet. It's not really so much with the language itself, but just the ecosystem, the tooling, and the products that are available for it. If you buy a chip off of a vendor, chances are, if you want to implement something for it, it's going to be in C++. And there's just a lot of C++ software out there. That's just the truth. A lot of it works, it's just fine, but they need people to look after it. And at the same time, though, there's room for improvement in C++, or maybe not, depending on your person. Maybe you think it's already perfect. But that's why things like Rust exist, to just take all the shortcomings, all the security shortcomings of C++, all the packaging shortcomings of C++, and just try to improve on them. I think it's a massive improvement. Personally, I've never done C++ professionally. I've only tried to, write C++, and inevitably shoot my foot off, which is just kind of what happens. But it's definitely still valuable. Bitcoin Core is not going to switch over to anything else anytime soon. Maybe in 10, 15 years, they'll start thinking about doing something else. Maybe even that's a long time. But for the meantime, it's really just going to have to be C++. So, and all the big companies, they're all hiring C++ devs still. It's just that it's hard because you're typically competing with people who are really experienced and highly effective. And so, as a hiring manager, those decisions are tough because, you want to be able to hire young people so that you keep the pipeline of talent going. But at the same time, it's you need to get the job done. Are you going to be able to train this person? So, C++ is still definitely out there. There are really talented people out there working in Bitcoin and C++ still. Very grateful for them. But it's pretty clear that there's still a ton of demands for that. So I'm really glad about the Open Sats initiative. I would say anyone that has a project that they think is valuable, specifically around dev tooling, that is really something that Bitcoin it doesn't have the best.
And dev tooling, you mean creating apps and softwares that have a good UI for people to be able to use Bitcoin.
To make Bitcoin apps with.
Yeah.
because, the whole process of making an app, like you're like, for example, being able to visualize your transaction graphically as you're experimenting with it. You can just read the raw transaction, and that's fine. And if you focus on that's great. But a lot of people, it's just more intuitive to see that visually. Mm-hmm. So they're just going to be more inclined to just get the job done faster if they're able to not spend so much time trying to decode all these symbols, in their head, and just have the computer do it for them. Mm-hmm. And it can help with debugging. There's just a lot of stuff that is really, in my opinion, still kind of missing.
Developers aren't designers.
Developers aren't designers, and developers usually just do things for themselves anyways. It's not because they're selfish. It's just because what they want doesn't exist, and they just want to make it, and they just do it, and then they'll put it out there on GitHub. But then once they're done, they'll just leave it there. And a lot of those tools, if they were just a little bit more general, a slightly better UI, slightly better packaging, for all the different platforms, it will be a lot more useful to more people. So that's definitely still needed. I do have a project myself called PSBT++ that I still have to carve out time to work on. I might apply for an OpenSats grant for that. And that's basically going to be a Bitcoin workbench that will, for example, let you have multiple wallets open at the same time, so that you can do multi-sig experiments, or be able to parse out a partially signed Bitcoin transaction and then look at the fields individually, edit them, tell you if there's any kind of error. I want to add syntax highlighting. I just have to carve out time and get it done. But just little things like that that are just all over the place.
Go ahead.
And I think that's hugely needed. So it was really great to see all the devs, just working on all their own different things at Plef.
Yeah, no, I think it's what sparks creativity, and this is how you get people interested into a project.
Yeah.
You have the people who are working really hard on something, and they're so, like you said, preoccupied and focused on what moves them. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of room for people who are obsessed with their own unique styles and techniques and work. Mm-hmm. And I think there will be people jumping in to make wallets and other sorts of Bitcoin apps, more achievable, to where not everyone needs to be able to use this, but you want to get people who understand tech and who are a little bit smarter to just enjoy the experience that they're working with. Because you need to create that spark for why people are using Bitcoin. No better way to show someone how quickly you can move money than, hey, download Wallet of Satoshi, let me zap you some sats.
Yeah, I totally agree. What really sort of motivated me to want to do the PSBT++ was my own problems personally working with PSBTs.
And what are PSBTs?
So PSBT is a file format that you can use. So a file format .txt or .json, if you're a developer, maybe you know that, or .wordx, right? It's just a file format. And in the file, there's fields to fill in for you to work together with other people to collaboratively finish a transaction. So take it from a partial state to a completed state. This is really useful for multi-sig, where you'll have multiple people signing the same transaction. Well, you want to set up the transaction, who it's going to, how much money, which Bitcoins are you spending, and then add your signature, and then you pass that file over to you, to the other person, and then they sign it. And then if it satisfies the spending conditions, you can just convert that to a transaction and then broadcast that. And it's really nice because without that, having wallets interoperate together is kind of a headache.
Yeah.
And this just really makes it easy. And it's just text. You open it up in a text editor, any text editor you want, and then you just see the different fields. But there's like a lot of them, and a lot of it is just like raw binary data, and so I think having like a special editor for that would be useful. So that's what PSBT plus.
So partially signed Bitcoin transaction.
Yeah.
Well, before we hop into some technical stuff, nitty gritty, which is always the case when I'm speaking with you, I did want to highlight a couple moments at Miami that were my favorite. Moment number one, seeing Peter McCormick bribe a bouncer.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah.
At the Club Deuce?
Yeah, Club Deuce. It was so packed, and I think we just weren't trying to get in. We were going to go to the beach and just party there. But I saw Peter McCormick come out and just hands the bouncer a fat wad of 100s, like not like an enormous amount, but
Big stack.
He gave the dude at least like $1,000, maybe $600. Like, it was a good amount of money. And I was just like, what the hell is going on in here where Peter is just...
Peter knows really well how to do the whole marketing thing. And I mean, the guy hustles a lot, and he's good at just accepting sponsorships.
Yeah.
And just getting the sponsorships. Like, if you look at his ad read, every week he just has new, because he's from like a marketing background, so he knows how to do all of that. And quite frankly, if you're a good content creator and you understand how to do digital marketing, you can just print money. Like, that's just the truth. It's especially if you're a likable person.
Yeah, that's where it starts.
And you can, really do these things. It can just work out really well. And it's not just for Bitcoin either. I just heard about like this fitness trainer, makes a lot of money, like millions of dollars, just because, she's just good at posting like fitness videos and stuff. People really like, she's like from Saudi Arabia or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting.
And it's really interesting. It's great that, because it's so open to everyone. If you have a good idea and you you want to put in the effort and the hustle, like if it's good content, like people will show up, and then advertisers will show up because they want to get their marketing material in front of eyeballs. Yeah. So Peter McCormick, he just knows how to play that game. That's hilarious that you saw that. I did not see that. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, you were talking with your team and a couple other people who were just outside.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Alana as well.
Yeah.
But I happened to catch it out of the corner of my eye. I'm always looking and people observing. And yeah, it's like you're saying, it was probably a bumping party, and Peter had to make sure that the house was going to allow it to continue. So he had to do his diligence.
It was a bumping party.
Yeah.
It was packed.
I mean... If we go back to it, I probably would have went, but it was like you're saying, like just being packed, waiting 2 hours to get in, to stand around where people are smoking cigarettes inside a building.
Yeah, we showed up late. That was the issue.
Yeah, classic us.
Yeah.
Moment number 2, you were with me, was when we ran into Eric Weinstein.
Oh my!
That was just one of the most geeked experiences of my life.
Eric Weinstein.
And he just looks at us and he's like, "You guys are strange."
Yeah.
And we're like, "Well, we are strange. Anyways, come check out this echo in this room that we found." And he just starts singing like opera, like, what did he sing song?
No, he just started vocalizing, and then he goes, "I love harmonic resonant frequencies." And because it was the echo, it was like this orange dome next to like this soccer kicking simulator, and he's just like standing there, singing, vocalizing. That was super funny.
I mean, the king is strange.
Yeah,
he blessed us with some strangeness.
Yeah.
And then I think moment number 3 was probably the pizza eating contest.
Oh yeah,
I had a lot of fun with that.
Oh, the meetup contest was so much fun. Oh my god, they need to add they need to add like way more events to that. And that was just so much fun.
It's something you're always talking about when I come to you with maybe doubts or concerns about something within Bitcoin, or, you know, how do we get people into Bitcoin? Your response is always community events.
Oh,
like
yeah.
The meetups that we do are crucial. It's crucial to get people involved. I don't think you were there for Scott's meetup, but I had this guy reach out to me, and he's like, this is like months after the meetup, and he's like, thanks for orange pilling me. By the way, how do I make a hardware wallet? And how can I be sure that, like, you know, it's airtight and no one's going to be able to, like, trace it back to me?
Yeah, we'll seed sign it.
Yeah, exactly. I sent him the seed signer, and I was like, you're pretty safe buying, you know, a Raspberry Pi and some of these components. So I do appreciate that whole community base, and it was really cool that this year at the conference they made it a big stage and a big part of the conference, because, to be honest, the conference was a little dull in a lot of ways if you weren't someone who was interested in Bitcoin and speaking with people. But the community games made it exciting. We played chess, we built the seed signer, and we watched Harambe eat a pizza in less than 4 minutes.
After watching him do that to that pizza, like it took me a couple days to get back into like pizza eating mood. I swear. It was just, oof. Yeah, that was brutal.
Drinking will do a lot to you, because that night I faced almost an entire Jack's Pizza.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was like at 5 a.m. I went to drop Sage off at the airport, and
that same night. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and Edwin's like, yo, I'm about to throw a Jack's Pizza and you want one? I was like, sure. Up at like 5:30 a.m. eating pizza after shoveling my stomach with way too much pizza earlier.
Well, so big stomach, fit 2 pizzas.
Exactly. So yeah, you know, there's all those fun times, and it kind of helps relieve some of that stress that you have. Like, you know, am I successful? Am I someone who's creating impact? Am I doing the right thing? Am I helping my business? Am I helping my company?
Yeah, and you do that by getting feedback from others in person it's just so honest. Like, even, you know, you can just tell by their body language if, you know, the conversation is vibing, if they're excited listening to you talk about what you're doing. And if, you know, people are doing that, then you're generally on the right track, you know, especially if enough people do it, and for sure if the right people do it, you know. But getting that kind of feedback off of Twitter or Telegram or Discord, like it's just tough. So it's just better to do it in person. And honestly, everyone there is just so nice. Like, there's like this misconception that Bitcoiners are mean, like,
only on the internet.
Yeah, and like, you know, we can be, you know, when we have to be, but for the most part, like, everyone's just so nice. Like, they just want to talk. What's nice about the bear market is that the people that are there because they want to be there. Whereas like during the bull market, like I did just keep running, like last year, just keep running into, you know, people that were from like adjacent kind of industries, but just kind of there checking it out, just testing the waters. And yeah, those people just don't show up, right? 'Cause, I mean, they're busy.
Yeah,
it's a bear market for everyone.
Yeah, this is the time for me where I got to meet Blockware. And
the Blockware guys,
yeah, Blockware guys are cool. I got to talk to Joe. He runs the Blockware Intelligence podcast, and we got to chat it up a bit.
Oh, cool.
So I was happy to see him.
Yeah.
Happy to connect with other podcasters in the sphere. And yeah, I saw some people from River, people from Swan. Yep. We got to go to the Foreman Mansion party.
That was fun.
So there was a lot of time to have real conversations with people who are doing important work within Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's, you know, it's really just about putting yourself out there and just say hi to people, like anyone. You know, you're standing next to someone, start chatting it up, you know, just say hi, what's up, and just see where it goes. And if it doesn't work out, just move on and do the same thing with someone else.
Yeah, Bitcoin has leveled my social skills to a whole nother like tier. I'm already a very sociable person. It's not hard for me to spark a conversation, you know, going to a bar or whatever it is. It's pretty easy to make friends.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what you're saying. It's this mindset where hey, we're all here at this place,
Mm-hmm.
generally for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of rude if I don't turn my shoulder around and
Yeah,
introduce myself and at least
it is rude.
start something. Yeah.
It is rude. Like this is, I think this is, it's like an American thing, I think. But, just people like being cold and just like not chatting it up. It's like, it is rude to just, be like someplace and like not talk to someone. You can at least say hi.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you that the sense of community that Bitcoin brings is really unique because it's weird. Like generally, like you get communities from people being together, like physically, like living in the same space, but we're all geographically distributed all over the world, wherever the internet is at. Bitcoin can reach it, and you still get that sense of like belonging to the same purpose, same sort of like, it's like a movement. It's like I just want to be in control of my own money, and I want to be able to decide my own rules, and everyone from all walks of life can relate to that. And you get all together in the same place, and you just start getting to know each other. So I totally agree. It's a great experience.
It's like the best long distance relationship you could ever have.
Yeah.
Because we all get so excited
Yeah.
to see each other when we do.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier. And in terms of excitement, some of the things that people were talking about at the conferences, obviously Ordinals,
Ordinal.
Lightning.
Oh,
and I kind of want to just jump in starting with Ordinals.
Ordinals are just ripping up the Bitcoin scene right now because one, Ordinals are basically just NFTs on Bitcoin done properly.
When you say properly, like
from a technical perspective, the thing about NFTs is that the most popular platform for NFTs was OpenSea. Apparently, they were doing $100 million a month in revenue during last year, which is nuts. I don't know how much of that is like wash trading or whatever. 'Cause NFTs is like really easy to wash trade, but that's still a lot of money. And the problem with OpenSea is that it's literally just a website. So it's people just like putting money into like a business and then just like clicking buttons, which is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. And the way that like those were like Ethereum based NFTs for the most part. I mean, they were like on other blockchains,
like your Bored Apes.
Yeah, and like the Yacht Club and the I don't know the names of the like the My Ladies are popular now.
CryptoKitties was a thing for a while.
CryptoKitties was separate. It was kind of the same concept, but it was old. It
was a little bit older.
I don't know if they like had a resurgence. Definitely the ape thing was very popular. And now the My Ladies, like you do kind of see them, which is so fun. That's a stupid photo, stupid JPEG. But no, the thing about NFTs on Ethereum is that the actual JPEG, like the thing you care about, isn't on the Ethereum blockchain. It's on a server somewhere else, typically IPFS or this other protocol called Arweave. From what I've heard, IPFS is like pretty popular for a lot of things. And literally all you post on the Ethereum blockchain, like you pay a transaction fee to have your NFT get written to the Ethereum blockchain, but it's just a URL that points to an IPFS server, and that is where your NFT is. And so if that IPFS server goes down for whatever reason, your JPEG is gone.
So kind of just like sorry to interrupt, kind of just like a regular image. Similarly,
it's the way that most images are hosted. Most images, like on Reddit, when you click on it, it's just a URL to like a server that is storing that. And that's how you want to do it, actually, for the most part, because it's really efficient. The thing is that it just sort of begs the question, like, what do you really own? I would say you don't really own anything. But if you were to take the JPEG itself and write the bytes directly onto a blockchain, and then you have a public-private key pair, and you can produce signatures for that, like, I would say that's concept of ownership is much more tractable in that sense.
And this is what ordinals are doing.
This is what ordinals are doing. What happened with ordinals is that we got SegWit and then we got Taproot. And no one really knew that the combination of those two would let a bunch of degens write bytes more or less indiscriminately to the Bitcoin blockchain. Because that's what's been happening. This guy, Casey, he's super awesome. Not a degen. Well, actually, he might be. But he figured out this method called Ordinals, Inscriptions, to just write JPEGs into a Bitcoin transaction. There's the specifics of which, we're not going to get into because we have to get into SegWit and Taproot and how that all works. But basically, it's just like the best possible way to write a lot of data on Bitcoin.
Now, sorry to interrupt real quick. Going back, the most important part that you had mentioned of this is that this was not the outcome of what small blockers had intended when SegWit became apparent and these ideas were pushed through.
A big thing about Bitcoiners is that they really do try to push the envelope as much as they can in terms of efficiency. And they will go to great lengths to just try to be as efficient as possible. Just because when you do that, that means you can share Bitcoin with more people because it's a shared resource. So the more efficient you are at using it, that means the more people can use, or you can use it more often for less money. So yeah, nobody had, and it's kind of like a hack. It's just this thing this guy came up with that wasn't really planned at all. But that's actually like how hacks work. Like when a company builds like a service or something, they have like an idea of what they want the service to do. But they don't think about all of the things you can do with it. And this is where hackers come in. It's like, oh, I can get in there without any authentication because of the way that the technology is set up. Just the tech stack is set up. Just something about it, I can exploit it and get unauthorized access. And it's kind of like, you just try to hack your way in there. And this is just how Bitcoin works. You just put stuff out there, and then as long as like the Bitcoin node, accepts it, like it's still valid. Like you can't really stop people from doing that just because you can't stop people from mining. But yeah, Ordinals, it's really interesting sort of what it's done to the Bitcoin community, because one, it's just shown everyone that people really like NFTs. I mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah.
The whole concept of like having a JPEG and show to others that you own it, is something that is appealing to a lot of people. Definitely more so than owning Bitcoin at this time. Like, that's just the truth. But at the same time, people like the Ordinals more than they like just sending Bitcoin. Like, there's more people that like Ordinals than people that just like sending Bitcoin back and forth. So, and we're all sharing the same block space.
And they've been around. They were just waiting for Bitcoin to be able to do this, essentially.
I mean, NFTs on Bitcoin were always possible from the beginning. It's just that it was just really hacky, and there wasn't a good way to do it easily. And this sort of goes back to like developer tooling. Like if you want to get people in, you got to make it easy for them. And like the easier you make it, the more people you'll get in. So there were a number of ways to do this with OpReturn and with, multi-sig wallet, multi-sig addresses, where you just put your JPEG in the keys, in the multi-sig public keys, but it just kind of sucked. And now, you have like a really nice, clean way to do it. It's just straightforward.
Yeah. And that's what we want in Bitcoin.
And that's what they want. So there's just just tons of people outbidding each other to get their transactions into the Bitcoin blockchain. And it's just, it's great for miners because something like $30 million in transaction fees have been just in the past couple months. So anyone that's been mining lately has been able to collect that.
Yeah.
So that's great. If that keeps up, then like that could just pay for all of mining,
Yeah.
So that itself is really interesting. One thing I learned about Ordinals inscriptions is that since you can write like not arbitrary amounts of data, but you can write a good amount of it, is you can write just raw text, just like text data into the Ordinals, and then you can like kind of play around with that a lot. And so there's this thing called BRC20 tokens, in which they'll put in JSON objects into the inscriptions, and then add an additional layer of software that interprets that data, and like you can put commands in there as well, and make your own like extra virtual machine that runs on these ordinals, and you can like program that. And like it's stupid, but it's really inefficient. But people like it.
What do you mean when you say virtual machine?
So a virtual machine is just like just imagine like an extra computer that is living on everybody's Bitcoin node, that you can give it data and instructions, and then it can perform a computation. So this could be, for example, find me all the other ordinals in the Bitcoin blockchain, and then add them up and then return the count, or whatever you want. There's already the Bitcoin itself has its own virtual machine for evaluating the opcodes and transactions, and then like the instructions are like check this public key with these Bitcoins that are being sent, and then make sure the signature is valid. Like that is all a computation that needs to happen, and it happens inside a virtual machine. Another great example is the Ethereum virtual machine. Again, it's the same. So typically this has been left out, like really, and so the virtual machine that's inside of Bitcoin right now is just really like dead simple, and that's just sort of because we don't want to make it so that people have to run Bitcoin Core on really beefy computers.
Sure.
And so like the sort of simpler you keep it, the more efficient it'll end up being. And that means you can run the software on low-end hardware. And that means you can have more people running the hardware. And that means that it'll be more decentralized because you'll have more people doing the verification. Again, the verification is just like checking the public key, checking the message, checking the signature, and making sure it's all good. I'm keeping it simple. There's like way more to it than that. But generally speaking, that is really what it is. Like, is this person authorized to send these Bitcoin in its binary? Yes or no? But that's like too simple. And like people want to do more complicated things. And they want to do it on Bitcoin. So they figured out that they can do this thing now. What that means, as far as the future is concerned, well, it means that like running a node is going to get more expensive because there's going to be more data on there. You don't have to run the BRC20 software to do the compute. That'll be like its own thing. But you still have to store those bytes. Thankfully, like the way that like ordinals are done is that it still just sort of like skips over everything. So like really all things considered, like it is really the best way to go about something like this. It's just kind of annoying if you're used to paying 1 Satoshi per byte in transaction fees, and now you have to pay way more.
Yeah.
It also sucks for all the other layer 2 protocols that sort of have implicit in the protocol design the ability to post transactions to the Bitcoin blockchain. A good example of this is Lightning. So Lightning is pretty much is this layer 2 protocol in which you basically make a Bitcoin transaction between two people, and then you keep a tab of like who owns which Bitcoin within this Bitcoin transaction. Because like we'll both get in there with like in a multi-signature address, put one Bitcoin in there, and then we can send that Bitcoin back and forth all we want virtually, like off chain, without ever touching the Bitcoin blockchain. But if we ever want to get out of this contract, then either one of us needs to post a transaction to close this contract out and return whatever Bitcoins are owed to us back to our single sig wallet, where it's nice and safe and easy. But what happens if all these other people are posting all these other transactions and paying so like one Bitcoin is like, $27,000, $26,000 right now. Generally speaking, like the fees are low. So like we'd pay like nickel, like back in the day. But now it's like, just hypothetically, what if like the transaction fee to get into the Bitcoin, into the next block is $28,000? I mean, I'm exaggerating, but then at that point, like neither you or I can close out this contract and just sort of go back to where we were. So from that perspective, it is problematic. If you don't reserve enough fees to pay for the transaction to get posted, you're kind of stuck. And that's actually what happened to a lot of Lightning service providers and a lot of Lightning wallets, was that they didn't have a good way to sort of account for large changes in transaction fees. There are a number of initiatives that are, they always knew that this was going to be the case. I think they were just hoping that they'd have more time.
They, as in the devs?
The Lightning devs.
Okay.
Yeah, they were key. They were very aware of this. It's actually a pretty obvious problem. Doesn't mean Lightning is broken. It just means that they sort of need to amend the protocol to make it a little more dynamic so that it can adjust to this very rapid change in transaction fees. 'Cause that can be like really problematic, especially if you have a lot of channels and, your liquidity is tied up. But the security of Lightning, the reason why it's secure is because you have the assumption that you can always go back on chain when things go bad. But if you can't do that, then that's not good. That's not secure. But I'm actually very confident that they'll be able to implement those changes and just improve it in that regard.
Well, a good thing I wanted to bring up at this point, because you mentioned high transaction fees and at what point will it even be worth it for someone to be able to move on chain. That kind of gets into a little bit of a philosophical question of how true is it that this ordinal is yours? In real life, it's pretty easy for me to say that Civic out there is my car. It's easy for me to have collectibles. It's easy for me to be like, check out my Pokemon cards. I have a lot of things that I collect and they have this real physical value. I can either use them myself or I can use them to trade with people, or some people just like to see it. It's cool. Can you talk me a bit through that kind of approach in a digital world with the digital assets, and how is it truly yours? And how is it a collectible in that sense?
No, that's a really good question. It really cuts to the heart of it all, in my opinion, because the ownership of your car out there, you have a title for it. If I were to take it, you could call the cops and be like, here's the title, the check the VIN number, it's obviously mine. And, that situation will get fixed. When it comes to like these digital collectibles, they're yours up to the degree that other people care about it, honestly. Like that JPEG's yours. Yeah, man. Okay. You know? Like, yeah. Like, yeah, it is yours. If everybody does care about it, then, you know, they care that it's yours. And if no one cares about it, then it's just like a lot of other things, right? It's just like, okay, whatever. So it's yours up to the degree that you can enforce it onto others. You know, there is no digital collectible police that you can go out there. It's all about, you know, this community of people that get together and have consensus on what is the meaning of ownership in the digital world. And in the most straightforward manner, is it on the Bitcoin blockchain? Like, can I see it on my node? Can I see that signature? Can I see those bytes? Can I see that public key on my node? If it is, like, yeah, dude, like it is yours. And then also, like, the hardest part about it is just that, like, there's a social consensus about it, you know, because, like, you can post a JPEG on there and, like, you know, pay the transaction fee, you know, make the signature, do all that properly, but then I can just, like, copy it and then do the same. And then at that point, like, you know, I would go to, like, the Discord or Twitter and be like, no, now it's actually mine. If people like me more than they like you, then they'll be like, oh yeah, it's now his. It's not yours anymore.
All you have to do is change a couple pixels and then...
No, you don't have to do that.
You can literally copy the same image.
Byte per byte.
Byte per byte.
And then just say it's mine.
Different...
And then if everyone says it's mine, then it is mine. And that's just how that works. So it is kind of shitty, you know? Because there's nothing to do about that enforcement of this social consensus. You just have to get people to like you enough to accept your claim of ownership. And to me, that's a little unsatisfying. You know, with a Bitcoin, like, you can't steal that UTXO.
Yeah.
Because you need the private key for that. There's no private key for a JPEG. Like, there's a private key for the signature, but it's not inherently, like, tied to anything underlying. Like, the Bitcoins that were produced they're tied to proof of work, you know, and I can, like, show the chain of, like, where the Bitcoin got produced. But the JPEG is just, like, whatever, you know? So from that's, I think, a big reason why a lot of people just don't really, like, vibe with the whole NFT thing. Like, it doesn't really, like, make them happy, you know, like, this concept of saying this digital collectible is yours when I can just right click and save, you know, right click and copy it infinitely. But at the same time, like, I do understand the whole concept of, like, you know, like the My Ladies, for example. A lot of people use them as avatars.
Sure.
Like, that probably makes sense, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah, from an artist's perspective, it can be a little bit discouraging.
Very discouraging.
Because you put in all this work and you want to move forward on something that you find futuristic, something that you think is going to return to you, when it turns out that it's actually even easier in this digital community to just rip what someone else is doing. And that's kind of like, from my experience of working on Twitter, you know, I think there is a little bit of, like, a nice bow that you can wrap with it, is creativity is always about copying. There's people who blatantly copy, and like you said, you hope that their reputation is kind of ousted. If you're a blatant copier, you're probably going to be known as a blatant copier. And that's kind of how it goes on the internet with making memes and creating culture. So in that sense, you know, if you're doing good art and you're doing good work, it's kind of just inevitable that people are going to steal from that if it's creative, if it works, and if people respond to it.
You know, the key sort of, I think the reason why NFTs can work, though, is because they do create a sense of community. And really, you're like buying into a community when you get into the NFT space and you buy an NFT, and you do have to play by the community's rules, or you can start your own, but that has its own problems. But that's, I think, really why people get into it. Like, they want to belong to something, and when you get into NFTs, there's community, like they all run on online communities, and like at that point, like everybody knows like who's who, like which avatars own which NFTs, and they respect that. Like for them, that's important, and they can like there are technical things that they can do to like check that it is actually yours, because it's very obvious if I copy your JPEG and make my own ordinal with it. Like, it is a totally separate ordinal, and like software can very easily distinguish from that.
And time in general.
Yeah, I mean, it
shows up later, right?
Exactly. It will be at a later time, so you can always, but that's not always, like maybe you just didn't post it quickly enough. So it really is just about the social consensus, and like, do you want to belong to that community? Then you play by the rules. If you don't, then start your own. So I think that's really what it's about for a lot of people. At the same time, the whole concept of like, royalties, even though that never really came into fruition, that's kind of interesting, right? Like, you make digital art, and then every time it gets sold, you get a cut. Like, that makes sense to me. Again, it's just like how to implement that. Probably see something with BRC20s implementing something like that.
Some kind of a universality of it.
Yeah, just like some way to, every time the art gets moved, that you get like a copy of it. You get a share of that sale.
Songs too.
But without sort of intervening. So you just have a wallet, and like money just keeps showing up.
It's not a Spotify check. It's not.
Yeah, because the thing is,
Splash or whatever.
You want it to be that way because you're not going to be able to intervene anyways if they're just going about and copying your digital media. You're not going to be able to like enforce them to like pay you. So like, you do want a system that just sort of handles that in as trust minimized fashion as possible. And that, that's sort of the dream, that a lot of people are going for. And if, that can be accomplished on the Bitcoin blockchain, I think it can be, then maybe not directly on the Bitcoin blockchain, but maybe on FediMint, we can talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, the whole Ordinals thing is great because it just brings in a whole new swath of people into the community. Most of them are degens, but like, still, it's great that they're coming by.
Yeah, and I think that higher transaction fees for miners, especially in the time that we're in right now, where, we're getting to a better point. I think it's pretty profitable to mine Bitcoin again. If you have a good, source of electricity at a good rate. It also puts you in this position where it's kind of like injecting a stimulus in a way. Like, here's more money for you guys to run these really expansive, financially expensive operations. And here's a way for you to get a little bit more out of it, which means that you can scale, and it means that you can plug in more machines, which means hash rate goes up, which means hopefully Bitcoin is more secure. So it is kind of in that sense, the hype and just like all these people screaming and shouting is actually helping those who play the game that is Bitcoin mining.
Yeah. That's definitely very encouraging to see, that miners don't just have to rely on the block subsidy to be able to pay their bills. And ordinals are just the beginning. If we keep coming, like Lightning was supposed to do this as well, just sort of has like a reverse effect of like, wanting to stay off chain as much as possible, but like you still want to like settle the channels and open and close the Lightning channel contracts. But there's going to be other projects as well. So like really anything that increases demand for block space is just beneficial for the overall security of the network, because it increases the incentive, and that means that you'll be able to add incentive for people to want to mine, hopefully in geographically distributed fashion and with a variety of setups, that aren't all totally the same. And, if that's the case, then it just gets that much harder to kill Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Is kind of the whole point.
Yeah, and less of a focus on the maras and the riots, and more of an opportunity for countries to invest and create these opportunities for their people.
Yeah, or just, I saw a great video of this guy in Guatemala using vegetable oil to run a diesel engine generator or something like that, and mining Bitcoin with it, like they just take the waste oil, just burn it right there and use it to power the miner, and like probably really good money for him, just get an S9. Like, it's not a lot of money here in the US, but for someone like them, especially if he's able to keep it running, and now with this shortfall of ordinals, like that'd be great for him. There's people like that all over the world, I mean, even in the US.
Not to mention less seed oils being ingested by humans.
Yeah.
Give them to the machines.
I mean,
they don't get inflamed.
Put the seed oils where they belong, in an engine, not in your body.
You're talking about Lightning and kind of getting into some of not the flaws, but the concerns of Lightning and how shortcomings and ordinals kind of put us in this position where, oh snap, like SegWit was released in 2017. So it's been 6 years, and the adoption of Lightning is not where we thought it'd be. But I feel like Ordinals has opened up the conversation, listening to, Tales from the Crypt and other good podcasts. A lot of people in Bitcoin excited about Ordinals, specifically because now they are able to highlight all the work that's being done in Lightning, and now have, like you said, more of that reason to fix these shortcomings or get to work on them.
So, I mean, two things I want to address. Like, one, the reason why Lightning hasn't really taken off is because using a system of value where the unit has like a floating exchange rate is still really hard for people to cope with. If you make like pies, for example, and every month you make 100 pies, you have to buy, like 50 pounds of apples or whatever. And, like the price of that is like pretty stable, for the flour and the sugar and the butter and the apples. But you get paid for the pies in Bitcoin. What happens when the price dips down and you still need to buy those items for some, for someone that like actually like is selling goods, like hedging the price volatility is really difficult. So whether that's Lightning or anything else, even if it were the most advanced and feature-rich payment system, generalized payment system possible, that can handle all volumes, all speeds, it would still not be good enough because of that. Now, I mean, you get around that with, hedging the price of Bitcoin. That also is expensive. Like, that's hard. So the price is volatile. So I would say that the lack of adoption isn't really concerning. It's still good that there's not that many people on Lightning, because with these decentralized protocols, if they get adopted really quickly before they get fully developed, you run into a lot of issues. Because then, like, you want to update those things later on, but whatever update you put out there, you got to make sure it's incentive compatible with the people that are already running it. And if someone has just sunk $10 million into a business, for all the dev work and like all the accounting and operation operations for the business. If there's like a big change to the protocol because they weren't able to develop it quickly enough, like they're just going to be hesitant to upgrade. And now you get the network to split. Like one side of the network is running an upgraded version of the protocol, and another part of the network is running an older version. That's a bad place to be in. That's how a lot of the internet works, actually. A lot of analogs to that, but so I would say that's actually kind of a good thing. I'm very happy with how Lightning performs. I think it's still great. I think there's a lot of great apps and a lot of amazing developers working on cool things. But really, it comes down to hedging price volatility, and then having like TurboTax and QuickBooks work with Bitcoin and take all of that into the accounting. Like business owners aren't accountants. Like they need the software to make their lives possible.
And that's why, but that's the case for Lightning. Is like once you start getting into Lightning, then it's like, okay, now you have a way to balance your books. You're just saying you need the software now.
We just need the software that interfaces with fiat, because these business owners, unless they're in another country that doesn't really have these kinds of laws, or they're doing it illegally, business owners need the software to be compliant. They're trying to run their business. They're not trying to get sued or face a fine that puts them out of business.
So this is more of like, it's easy for you and I to send 50 sats, 100 sats to each other.
Yeah.
It's harder for us to then tomorrow create a business using Bitcoin that's regulatory approved.
It's not just you can do it in a way that's regulatory approved. It's just so much work, and it's a total headache. And you see this, if you ever talk to like a small business owner and you like talk to them about Bitcoin, like it's not going to work because they're not programmers, and the software that they're using doesn't take into account the individual transactions. So they have to get kind of smart about how they do it. There are already like ways to go about it and stuff. Like I think Strike is a great example.
Yeah.
You just set up a Strike wallet. It's custodial, which is too bad. Again, that's sort of like the downside of it, is that if you do want these like super easy solutions, you do have to give up something. Like it's either your time or the security. So, but they really do need these like fully integrated solutions. And also like it's kind of like a chicken and the egg. Like there's no demand because there's no businesses. There's no businesses because there's no demand. Except for the odd person, usually me, that just comes in and asks them to take Bitcoin. But like that's just how anything like this would unfold. Like it's not about the technology. It's not about the protocol. There's tons of other protocols out there that are technically like better suited, but then you run into like liquidity issues and security issues. Yeah, so like it really is just like a tough problem to solve. Like the dollar is where it's at because of a lot of happy accidents. It really all just fell into place. It is what it is. I personally think Lightning will allow people to pay for things that they previously weren't able to. And I think a really good example of this are all the AI apps that are out there, where it's usually like just entrepreneurs in Southeast Asia that know how to cater to the American market. They can get a bank account, but they want to. They can only use Stripe. Like a lot of them just use Stripe payment links. Stripe is great, by the way. But the downside is that you're using credit cards. And credit cards, first, they have their own host of issues because they're credit cards. They're from like a long time ago. They've gotten better. With Apple Pay, it's actually really good. But they have to charge a monthly fee usually. Like it's usually like a subscription-based service. This is how like a lot of SaaS, software as a service, companies are made. And that's like not always what you want. Like I don't want to like put in my credit card and pay $15 just to use a service. And in a really good example of this is the AI companies, because the AI companies can't just sell you, can't just give you a free trial for their apps, because they have to burn serious energy and use a lot of compute resources to make your special AI JPEG. I'm talking like Midjourney type apps where you like type in something or you describe something and then it generates the image for you. That situation, like sometimes it is, like I've had it happen before where I just want to make like one image. Like I don't want to be subscribed to this thing for a whole year. I just need one image, and I'd really just rather pay like $2. But if you just charge me $2 with credit card, there's the fixed fee and then there's a variable fee. It's usually the fixed fee that ends up killing you, where $2 minus the fixed fee doesn't really cover all your bills for paying for the GPUs. If you had Lightning, you'd be able to keep pretty much like 99.9% of those $2, and it would be enough to let you do that. So I think they will switch eventually. I think that demand, especially as AI apps get more and more specialized. Personally, I think in the future, a lot of like high quality LLMs and like machine learning algorithms are probably like the really good ones are probably going to get outlawed, and those are going to be the ones you want to use, and you're probably going to want to pay for them with Lightning.
Right. So where Lightning I think has its advantages is it's multi-layered as the person who is doing the business and the person who is the consumer. If you can avoid ways of punching in your, bank information, card information, if you can avoid ways of putting in your personal information in email, there's less of this spam attack on you and your information as a consumer. And if you're a business owner, you're saying that there's less people skimming, the fat from the earnings that you should be getting, which are going to fund your extremely expensive computer that is generating millions of images based on humans telling it to.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, they take those, you're kind of saying in a derogatory manner, but, MasterCard, Visa, the payment processors, they all provide a service. There's a number of other, services that they offer, like fraud protection and whatnot. That can be beneficial. There's ways to do that with Lightning as well. So I'm still very bullish on it. Yeah. All of the sort of planned work that's out there, I think is phenomenal. Things like splicing, things like blinded routes, things like Mutiny Wallet. I know that's for that. I think they're doing a fantastic job, and it's just gonna keep getting better. So people that are sleeping on it, usually it's people that talk shit about Lightning are people that want you to use their token instead. Well, which is like always really funny. It's like, oh, you want me to buy your thing instead? Okay. Okay. I wonder why you feel this way, right? And I think it's just gonna take time. These things are really complicated. People have like very ridiculous expectations about how these things unfold. It's really like really slow. It usually always is.
It's the Louis C.K. airplane skit. Do you know that one?
No, I don't think so.
He talks about the first time he experienced Wi-Fi on an airplane, and it was like this promotional service from American Airlines on this flight, and they get up in the sky, and everyone starts complaining because the Wi-Fi isn't working, and he's like, could you just take a second and think about this? Like, we're in the sky using internet, we've never been able to do this, and your first and instant reaction is to be upset. Oh, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working?
Yeah,
It's totally, I feel like, one of those scenarios.
it is. People have like pretty ridiculous expectations most of the time about just how hard something is. Like, they'll think it's just easy. The reason why they think it's easy is because people do a really good job at abstracting away all the complexities. Like the internet, like you just plug in a box and you type in stuff on your laptop and you're off to the races. A lot of work went into that. A lot of money went into that to making it that simple. Like, it used to not be that simple, right? For a very long time. Yeah, a lot of it is just people's expectations. A lot of ADD. Yeah, just be patient.
So it's more like ordinals are symbolic. They didn't necessarily make Lightning better in the sense like, ordinals came out, now all these new LN apps exist, and all these tweaks to this already existing Lightning software. It's more just because ordinals created this, problem of bloated, expensive blocks. It's giving more of a reason to then turn to Lightning and kind of see why its ingenuity is important.
Yes. The fee pressure definitely made people realize that, yeah, just using on-chain for everything is like not really that great of an idea. But moreover, it stress tested all of these businesses and projects that were kind of coasting along, just hoping that the fees wouldn't go up. And then they went up really fast. And they were all caught off guard because, like I was saying earlier, Lightning right now doesn't have a good way to dynamically adjust for really fast changes in fees, in transaction fees. And so, there's been works, they're trying to think about what the best way to do it. The design space is really large for something like this. And, they really do want to pick the best solution, all things considered. And, when you add all things considered, is you got to think about everybody using it and like how do you take everyone's considerations into account. And so it's hard. So, but finally, the Ordinal craze pushed people to really like prioritize this, and that's a good thing because like fees are coming back down a little bit. It was like a hype kind of mania. I don't think it's over, but definitely let the Lightning community realize, okay, we really do need to like get anchor outputs and package relay and all these other proposals into actually implement them and distribute them. So I think it's just a positive. Like, it's too bad, it kind of makes everyone look kind of like they weren't prepared for it, and they were, but they really weren't. So now they really understand that it is a priority. So I think it's fine. I don't see how else it could have happened.
It's kind of the nature of Bitcoin and where we are and how we navigate, because we don't have an authoritative, strong ruler who is saying this is how it's going to go now.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. We're going this way. You have to get the devs to buy into this, and you have to get their gears turning, and you have to nerd snipe, as you would say.
Yeah.
You have to pull in people who are willing to try to expose and make it better through that, exposition. So I'm with you. It has to come through this natural, pragmatic sense of this happened, so how do we react to it?
Yeah.
And that's the fascinating part of Bitcoin for me, as someone who comes from a historical background, is you have less of this, the king said this, and then, the Muslim empire said that, and then, Palestine became this. It's like less of that, and it's more of, well, you can follow the conversations, the public discourse. You can see, the smartest, brightest people within the projects all sharing, observing together. And yeah, sometimes it takes a volcano erupting for people to realize, well, maybe we shouldn't build the village so close to it.
Like stop signs get put up after there's an accident. It's just kind of how it is. Like laws get made after people get hurt. That's sort of like the whole point. No one goes through trouble. I mean, some people do actually, but usually, it was laws were put in place like seatbelt laws. Because like people just kept dying in car crashes. So it sometimes just takes bad things to. Sometimes it just takes something bad to happen for people to realize, hey, we're doing things wrong. Let's fix it up a bit. But
go ahead.
Overall, I think Lightning is still fantastic. I didn't have any failures when I was using it. I think the people that were really kind of in a bad position were the Lightning service providers and the routing nodes, the people with a lot of money on a Lightning node. People just using Wallet Satoshi. I use Phoenix Wallet. Were fine. Moon Wallet users, I did hear that they did have problems, but that's because Moon Wallet users use zero-conf. And zero-conf means that like you're just taking a transaction and then assuming that it's just going to get put in the Bitcoin blockchain. And then if you assume that's true and it does happen, like it's fine, you can just trust that it's going to happen. But if the fees are super high and the fee pressure just keeps going up and up and up, that zero-conf transaction is never going to get in. So that assumption's broken, and which kind of destroys the whole premise of the wallet, of Moon Wallet. So those people were having an issue, and it's really only like a topic of discussion because so many people use Moon Wallet, because it's just really heavily shilled. The UX is great. It's a little expensive in my opinion.
Yeah.
But what do you call it?
Especially on-chain.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm still, I just looked over the splicing proposal and, I've just seen where they're at, and it looks like they're in a really good place. So we're going to get splicing like very soon. It's, this is really encouraging. Splicing is when you take a Lightning channel and you splice in more Bitcoin into it or out of it without making a whole new channel. So it's like a top up or like a topping up mechanism. You can do a lot of cool things with that, especially around privacy. So it's really encouraging. So I think there's no reason, like if you have a good idea for Lightning or you want to get into it, like it's still a really good time to get into it. There's businesses that are coming out that are, it's just really encouraging. So, but another development that came out recently was the ARC protocol. So this was dubbed TBD XXX, to be decided for some time. This developer, he's not really even a developer. He's more of like a Bitcoin wizard. Like he's someone who just like makes something out of nothing, which is like really impressive. To be able to command that level of mastery of Bitcoin and come up with like new primitives altogether, like that's really, really hard to do. So it's this Bitcoin wizard named is Burak. He's from Turkey, and basically made this like new way to help liquidity on the Bitcoin network and on the Lightning network. And it's just a really interesting proposal. He's done some like really cool things in the past, so I'm actually really bullish on him getting this done. There's no code, so at this point it's just like a fancy PowerPoint. But it looks like it could be really beneficial. So, there's all kinds of, and this is sort of like an auxiliary protocol that would run alongside Lightning. just to sort of smooth over some of the rough edges, particularly around privacy and liquidity, which are really, like, privacy is like actually quite good on Lightning.
Yeah.
But liquidity management is still really kind of pain. That is one thing I think would have been better by now, and there are some ways to make it good, but still, like, not that easy. And it does actually need to be a lot easier and fully automated. So, but that's a hard problem. So, like, thankfully, we have guys like Burak come in and literally invent like entirely new primitives to help us deal with these issues. So yeah, overall, I think Lightning is in a great place. I'm not really worried about it at all. Like, the community's awesome. Plebnet is still going really strong. Really all the FUD you see is just people that don't want it to be successful. Do I think it's going to be like the general end-all be-all for payment solutions? I don't think all payments are going to go through Lightning. But I do think a lot of them will. And for things like buying NFTs, for things like buying compute time, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially as, the price of Bitcoin relative to whatever fiat, increases more and more, and sats become the nature of how you're paying for things.
Well, that's the best part about Lightning is that if you just have like a one Bitcoin channel, like right now it's, like when Lightning came out, Bitcoin was like around like 10K or something like that. So people were just putting up like, multi-Bitcoin Lightning nodes, and then the price just shoots up, and all of a sudden you have like $1 million on a server. And, where the keys are hot. Like, it's good because it means that the liquidity gets better because you need to use fewer sats to buy things with. But at the same time, it's like, it gets out of hand really quickly, because maybe for $1 million, like, it is worth it for someone to try to hack you, So thankfully, like, all you have to do is just close down channels, but that also brings us difficulties. This is where splicing would come in. It's like you have a one Bitcoin channel, Bitcoin goes up a lot. You can just trim out some of those Bitcoin and make the channel smaller, maybe 0.7 or 0.5 Bitcoin.
A little less riskier than...
Yeah, because you don't want that much money. I mean, you can't, like, at every price point, at every, like, amount of value you're having in your Lightning node, you have to do different things. And you get to a point where it's just, like, way too much work, and like, setting it up, like, technologically, like, mitigating some of those risks, it's just too hard, like, having, like, several $1 million on a server like that, making sure that doesn't get taken from you, that's pretty hard, actually. So, Lightning is, like, it is hard to, like, take down that software and, like, steal the keys, but I don't think it's impossible. I haven't heard of anyone have that happen to them. Not sure if I would, if it did, but I don't think it's been the case, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. So, and again, it's all just about understanding what your risk is and mitigating those issues. So,
yeah, one cool thing with Lightning, from my perspective, using Lightning wallets for the last couple of years now between friends, it's been a really easy way to transact for food, or whatever it is, back and forth.
Yeah.
No one's spending crazy amounts of money. We just have a little bit in our Lightning wallets, and we can, pay for things.
It's better than
each other.
It's better than Venmo.
It is.
It's because you have, one, it's like way more private. Venmo, I didn't know for the longest time that all of the transactions are public by default.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, I was just like paying friends back and stuff for like drinks or food and tickets and whatnot. But I just didn't know that it was totally public,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like I would put jokes in there in the description. It's like, I thought it was just between you and I. But no, it turns out it's like everyone can see it. So from that perspective, and I know you can turn it off, but it's like, you know, when you go to Bitcoin Miami, like people come in internationally, they don't have Venmo. They don't, but they can get a Lightning wallet.
Mm-hmm.
So paying people through that is just so much, it's just so much more convenient because you don't have to think about all of that.
Yeah.
So,
No, and from that point, if it works, then that's great. And I think we've successfully used Lightning wallets, and I've been able to transact on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to show people it. People have been super impressed. They didn't even know you could do this within Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, I've been able to move it on chain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once you build up too much in the Lightning wallet, you know, I've never had issues losing any Bitcoin, moving it on chain, moving it to cold storage.
So easy.
So, you know, it is more, it's not futuristic, it's more modern, it's here now. And dude, yeah, I'm super excited about its future, you know, like you said, I don't have time to hear about people who wanted not to succeed.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of great projects that are happening using Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And you have been able to work on one of those projects.
Yeah.
And I want to bring it back to our first episode back in January.
Yep.
I felt like you were at a point where you were grinding and working really hard on all of these things and not getting paid for anything. And on top of that, everything with DLI was going south. So it's not like you didn't have a stressful experience, yet you dedicated so much of your time to just work on an open source project that was FediMint.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember asking you, you know, what is your goal for 2023?
Mm-hmm.
And it was to become a Rust engineer.
Yep.
And, you know, post your work with FediMint, that almost happened immediately. So
Yeah, I know.
I just want the audience to know that Matthias achieved his 1 year goal in I think about 3 months, I'd say.
Yeah.
So if you could explain a little bit about what you did on FediMint,
Yeah.
the hackathon,
Yeah.
and kind of, yeah, how it opened doors for you.
No, I mean, this is just the magic of the internet and open source software development. It's challenging to break into software development. You know, you either go the traditional route where you like study university and then you get an internship and then you get a job, or, you know, you just, you know, get a job in something like that. I'm talking about like working for like a big company or something like that. It can be hard, and it's also volatile. So I do think, you know, working for yourself and like figuring out how to like, you know, manage your own personal business is super valuable. It's way more fun. You know, I don't have an alarm clock. You know, I wake up at around roughly the same, like around 7 each morning. Over time, your body will just get adjusted to it. But like, I don't have to wake up early for anyone. I would if I had to, but I don't have to. And like I used to do it actually. But I was able to just level up my own skills in Rust software engineering just by contributing to open source, you know, and that's sort of like the best, you know, it's just so liberating knowing that I don't really have to ask anyone for permission, you know, like I really just wanted to do this thing because I thought it was awesome. I thought FediMint was just, I think FediMint is just an amazing project, and we'll circle back around to that.
Totally.
But basically you make a GitHub account, you go on the Discord, and you download the project, and you just start reading the docs, and you start getting it to work. And if something doesn't work, you ask for help, and everyone on there, they will go out of their way to make sure that you have what you need. And again, that's just part of it being like an awesome community. Not all communities are like this, so you really do got to find the good ones. But FediMint is one of those. So basically what happened is this company called Fedi, which is sponsoring the development of the FediMint Protocol. FediMint is a protocol similar to Lightning Network, similar to Bitcoin. And we'll go back, when I circle back to it, explain what FediMint is. But FediMint was hosting this hackathon because they wanted developers to build on top of FediMint and make apps for it. So my idea for it was, and then I guess if I don't explain what FediMint is, it's not going to make sense. But
yeah, we can explain FediMint first.
So let's explain FediMint first.
Yeah.
So then FediMint is a concatenation of federated Chaumian mints. So with 3 words,
yeah,
break it down.
Let's get a little bit into layman's terms.
Yeah. So a mint is like a bank. They mint coins. Back in the day, that's sort of what they were. Chaumian. Okay. A Chaumian mint is a mint that produces Chaumian eCash. Chaumian eCash was the world's first cryptocurrency, and it was invented by this fellow named David Chaum in the 80s. I think he was working at Stanford or something like that. And it was a really interesting protocol because it allowed people to transfer value over the internet in a secure fashion, but also in a very private manner without really having to do anything. And that's sort of why the Chaumian eCash is so interesting, because you just get excellent privacy out of the box without having like crazy protocols or like crazy cryptography. Like it's actually like pretty tractable, like what you have to do. It's pretty straightforward as far as these things are concerned. Like definitely, if you compare it to Monero, if you compare it to like Bitcoin privacy on chain, if you compare it to Zcash, Mimblewimble, there's a bunch of other, initiatives as well. Those all use like really fancy cryptography and like, hacks and tricks to sort of give you privacy, but it's hard to understand. And that's not a good position to be in with privacy. Like, when you're dealing with your financial transactions, like you want to have a good degree of assurance that your transactions are confidential and that no one can peer into them. But if you don't really know how the thing works, you kind of either have to trust somebody else or just sort of take a leap of faith. And like the more complicated the protocol becomes, the sort of more likely it is that you're going to get egg on your face, thinking that you were doing a private transaction and then it actually wasn't. And so that's fine for the people that are in the know because they know what works and what doesn't, but that's not so great because like everyone should be able to use this technology. So having it be really simple is I think very important.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that's what eCash.
That's what eCash is. The downside is that it's totally centralized. So a little backstory. David Chaum invents this protocol. He puts out the white paper. I recommend anyone that's interested to go read it. It's actually like it's pretty short, and well written. And he then wants to turn it into like a real product, so a bank. And the idea was you start a bank, you have a pool of, let's say, dollars, and then you issue these eCash tokens out to the depositors of those dollars into that bank. Those people can now transact freely in between them using eCash. So already, and then you could charge them or something, and then you have a viable business. The downside of this is that this is not was not at the time sanctioned by any government, and so they couldn't possibly allow this. And so what did they do? They just squished them. You can't do this. Okay. They tried to get a couple businesses up and running, I think in the 90s with this. There was some success. There was a little bit more success in Europe, specifically in Switzerland, just because the laws are a little bit different. But still nothing really took off. a really interesting fact about Xiaomi and eCash is that it almost made its way into Windows 98, I think it was. Windows 98 or Windows 2000. Microsoft at the time was making a really big push to get everybody on the internet. And they realized, hey, this thing can be used for commerce, but, you just show pictures of things and then you can buy them and have it shipped to your house. But you still need a way to pay for it. And there's not, like in the 90s, it wasn't like a good way to pay for things online. Like you could send people your credit card, but there wasn't HTTPS, a secure way to send your data over to the merchants and make sure that nobody else in the middle could see your credit card number. Because the thing about credit card numbers is if you have the number, you can spend money from it.
You were asking to get hacked, ordering some pizza with a credit card.
I mean, same with bank account numbers and like passwords and stuff like that. It's just like so not going to happen. So Microsoft realized, we like need a payment system for this. And they were also going to attach like a digital ID passport to your copy of Windows. So you'd be able to have, like a digital ID. And then the .com bubble burst and sort of everyone, like, bucket of cold water got thrown on everything and people just kind of forgot about it. Then we got PayPal, credit cards, but really had that worked out, like the internet would be a very different place, how, like, man, like everything would have been a lot different, I think.
Microsoft also would have owned the world.
Microsoft would have owned the world, so it would have been a lot different in a way worse way. I mean, it would have just been,
if they had their hands on digital currency and transactions, the internet.
It's a big part of like everyone's lives now, all the growth that occurred. The world runs on software at this point. So the idea that Microsoft was going to own everything. Yeah. So glad it didn't happen. We got PayPal, pay whatever. We have Apple Pay now, so it's Google. I mean, Apple Pay is really the best one. So it's all fixed. But yeah, it was a good protocol at the time, but really like the downside was that it was centralized, and you could only really make it work for like fiat. You could like maybe you have it tied to like bonds or like stocks or something like that, but like people didn't really want that. Still don't, and it just kind of got forgotten about. And then Bitcoin came about. Still, people forgot about it. And like around maybe 5 years ago or a little more, this researcher from Germany, Eric Elsirian, figured out that, you could take this Xiaomi and eCash concept and combine it with Bitcoin, and you actually have a protocol that might have legs, but you still have the problem of so like in the sense that like, you make up a bank where you deposit Bitcoin and you get issued eCash. And then if you want to pay a transaction, you can pay through eCash by paying the provider, and then they pay the, whatever the address, the invoice for that. And
they get paid out.
Yeah. And then they don't know where the payment came from. Because the thing about eCash, you can also send it to yourself. So a transaction is typically a to, a from, and then amount. In the case of eCash, the to and the from is totally private. You can't tell who it is. It could be me sending to you, me sending to me. There's no way to discern. So he combined the two, but then realized like, this is still kind of sucks because, yeah, it's harder to take down because someone could just set up the bank anywhere in the world. But you still have the issue of the custodian being able to run away with your money. So the way you can fix that is by, instead of having a single custodian manage the private keys for those Bitcoin, you have a federation of custodians. And the federation is basically the owners of a multi-signature wallet, a multi-signature address on the Bitcoin blockchain. Meaning that when you deposit money into this mint, to this Xiaomi mint, it's not just one person that owns it, it's multiple people that own it. And then what you can do is you can set up a threshold for what you think is acceptable in terms of security. So let's say there's 3 people in the federation. You can specify in the software, in the configuration of the software before you start it, that 2 of those 3 people, can be any 2, combination of the 3, to accept, to authorize and authenticate the transfer of eCash. And now you really like, assuming the federation can be trusted, or at least some members, in enough of a threshold of the federate, like at least 2 out of 3 can be trusted, you actually have like a pretty good system. It's still custodial in nature, meaning that you're not directly in control, but you get so many benefits from it that giving up on that custodial aspect, I think, is worth it at a certain price point for a certain number of use cases. It's not, I wouldn't use this for like your life savings. You know, like if you have Bitcoin and you want to give it to your kids, you really do need to look at something like on chain, you know, like a multi-sig or whatever, or some other scheme that where you're 100% in control. But maybe for like, you know, e-commerce, this could work really well, because in e-commerce, you know, the volumes are a little bit different. You know, like it's really just about making business transactions happen. You know, you want the confidentiality, and you also want it to be cheap. So because this isn't directly on chain, you don't pay the transaction fees. You also get this added benefit of programmability. And that's really, me personally, where I get really excited about. And this is what, so just sort of to just fully close out how FediMint works is you and a couple of your friends get together, you make a multi-signature wallet, and then you run the FediMint Protocol software on top of your Bitcoin Core node. And then this lets you manage this mint. And it's really all just automated. You don't, as a federation member, have to really do anything other than to just make sure your server isn't crashed and it's connected to the internet. And then once you do that, when people make transactions, these eCash transactions, that transaction gets shared with the federation members. They all share it with each other and make sure that they are in agreement with that transaction. And then together, once they all agree that they all agree, move together in lockstep onto the next, where it's called epoch. And an epoch is just like a slice of time.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like X, you know, these 5 transactions happened in the last 5 minutes. I just made sure that everybody saw these 5 transactions, and that I made sure that they saw me as well. Let's post it. And an epoch is like a block. So, and then let's post it to this database and make sure that everybody's in agreement to what the final state of these 5 transactions is. And they just keep moving forward in time. So you can deposit Bitcoin into it. You get eCash. You can deposit the eCash back to the federation. They'll return the Bitcoin again if they're trustworthy. So you got to be able to trust them, at least enough of them, right? And you can, one more added benefit is that you can pay Lightning invoices with it, because what you can do in a sort of contrived roundabout manner, but it's secure and private, which is why it is the way it is. But you basically pay the federation in eCash, and the federation will more or less, you know, they have this thing called the Lightning Gateway and like all this other technology. But basically, let's say you want to buy a $100 gift card on BitRefill, but you only have $100 worth of Bitcoin in eCash. All you're going to do is just point your wallet to BitRefill, and the federation will make sure that everything happens correctly.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's super awesome, because Lightning invoices is already an awesome format for, I mean, it's an invoice. It's really what you want, right? And it's already widely adopted, so you don't have to have yet another standard for people to buy into. And it allows different federations to be able to pay each other without being concerned about the trustworthiness of each other. Because again, you're just sort of relying on the trustlessness of Lightning to bridge together all these different communities, because that's really what they're going to end up being. It's just different community banks. In my view, this is going to get widely adopted by the global South in a communal fashion. But then with Lightning, they'll all be able to pay each other more or less in a seamless manner.
Yeah.
And this is really good because onboarding people onto Lightning is tough. The reason for that is because more or less you need money to receive money. And the people in the global South, that's their problem, is that they don't have any money. Like, they're willing to work, willing to do stuff, they're capable, competent, but they don't have anything to start up with, so they have the classic cold start problem. Whereas if they were onboarded directly onto FediMint, all you need to do to start using FediMint is just download a very lightweight piece of software onto your mobile device, and then you join a federation. You would join the one that you can trust, and then you just show a Lightning invoice, and I can just pay it from like my Phoenix wallet. So you just receive Sats. It's totally private for that one guy that has no money, probably no recourse to like protect themselves in terms of like the privacy of their financial transactions. And they're off to the races. Mm-hmm. And then, let's say if they accumulate, a fair amount of wealth in this federation, they probably have enough money to pay for the transaction fee to then bump all that money off to cold storage. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's fully self-custodial, right? So like, that's really how I see people using this, is eCash for just like spending money, doing transactions. Lightning will be more for like a checking account, where you like get your like whole paycheck deposited into, but then you spend out of an eCash wallet. And then on-chain, I see that more for cold storage. Mm-hmm. And your life savings, essentially. So you have your savings account, you have your checking accounts, and then you have your super special, community banking credit card.
Right. Fedi would be like the debit card that you're using for that checking account.
Yeah, it's totally private. Mm-hmm. And like I said, you can program the eCash inside the federation. Mm-hmm. So what do I mean by that? Well, for example, you could imagine some kind of escrow service, that's doesn't involve a third party. You can do that if you have enough programmability. You can imagine a decentralized order book. You can imagine for the Ordinals people, this is something that I posed to them. Hopefully they take me up on it, but they wanted to make an exchange for buying and selling Ordinals, and they were trying to do it all on chain. And I told them, it's like, yeah, you can do that, but it's going to be really hard, and it's not going to be fun, and I don't think your users are going to like it that much. It's for sure going to be expensive. What if instead you just keep the ownership of the Ordinal on chain, but then the bidding occurs within a federation, and then you can really do whatever you want. In my perspective, it would be so much better to have it set up that way, rather than having it you just try to using just Bitcoin on chain. Mm-hmm. And the project that I had made.
Real quick, I wanted to ask a couple questions.
Oh yeah,
or kind of just make a few comments. So FediMint, it's essentially, it's a number of things, but from FediMint, you don't really need anyone outside of Bitcoin being like a Bitcoin company and operating within the laws of their government. You don't need exchanges. You can build that in FediMint.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about the time that it takes to take your fiat and move it into something like a stable coin, which then you can move it and sell it as Bitcoin, and then you can move the Bitcoin. you're eliminating these steps because you can just have a federation that you can send your Bitcoin to, and they'll take care of whatever their services are that you're looking for. So you're almost creating like this anarchist community within Bitcoin that is going to have its checks and balances, because you still need to have some sort of a review system, some sort of a reputation. You can't just be a federation that's going to, run away with people's money. So there's going to be, whether it's good or bad, there has to be some sort of checks and balances for this to work. But essentially, with FediMint, you can just eliminate a lot of the roadblocks that it would take for someone to take Bitcoin and make it useful for whatever it is they want, for their friends, for their family, for banking services.
Really, it's the best way to get anybody onboarded onto Bitcoin. It can be great for businesses that just want to start accepting Bitcoin because they don't have to set up Lightning channels. They don't have to set up a node. They just have to set up a wallet and just some very basic software that they eventually with Bolt 12, which is this new standard of Lightning invoices that built on top of Lightning invoices, they won't even need software. They'll just need a QR code or an NFC tag, and they just have like QR codes for all their items in the store. And then you just snap it and then you pay for it right then and there. And then if they want to eventually move over because they're doing so much volume, they can just very easily transition over to Lightning because it will be the same standard of interoperability, Lightning invoices. So,
I mean, you don't need a link tree, if you're like a business, if you're promoting yourself on social media, if you're running a concert, or if you're selling out of venues, or if you're running a conference, like
totally,
you can do this all within FediMint.
There's no reason why, like Lollapalooza, for example, or Coachella, like usually those festivals, what they'll have you do when you first walk in is have you buy their tokens, and then the tokens let you buy the beer and the food and stuff. No reason why they can't just make a federation of concert organizers and they all just use these eCash tokens. They don't even have to be Bitcoin also.
Okay. So you can use stable coins and different...
You can use whatever
cryptos,
you want.
Yeah.
It's just that the FediMint software works with Bitcoin, but you can just take Bitcoin testnet or reg test even and just have it be worth nothing. And then you just use the eCash. It's software, so it's really flexible. It's just a matter of what you can ship.
And the issuing of eCash is as simple as...
It's automatic.
Taking gold and saying that this is currency based in that gold. It's just a continuation of kind of creating money. Doesn't matter what it's based in, as long as that worth exists.
That's definitely something I've thought about as well. I do expect there to be federations that issue assets, in that they'll, I could see, for example, a federation, like you said, where the federation members all have like gold coins or something, and then they like live stream like the gold coins or something. There's still that element of trust, but like, if you ever want to cash out, they like ship you the gold coins. I don't see why they couldn't do that.
Or a beef federation.
Or a beef, rancher, a federation of ranchers.
For eggs or any...
For eggs, or for really nice cars, or for property. Really no reason why it can't exist in that manner, other than people just not wanting to. But it's cool because like I said, you can program stuff into it. So you can program like a way to do stability into Bitcoin, where like the price is a little bit stable by having this like a DeFi-like protocol, for example. Whether that works well or not, is another story, but it is something you can do. And I do think, it's permissionless software. Nobody has to ask for permission. If you do finally crack that and get it out there, that would be really valuable. And actually, that's what won first place in that hackathon that I competed in. It was a way to make eCash wallets, but with a stable amount, stable value in the wallet. And they had like this sort of DeFi-like protocol and that got first place. That was $50,000 first prize.
Wow.
I think it was a group of anons that submitted that. So I don't know who it was.
A little bit more impressive then for you to take the runner-up as a solo project, right?
Yeah, I think I was the only solo participant. I did have a partner at the beginning, but then they dropped out, and so I finished it by myself.
Let's get into your project.
My project was a file system that was hosted by the Federation. So the idea was you have that database that keeps track of all the transactions that is made consistent by a consensus algorithm. And so the nice thing about that is that database is actually highly available, meaning that all of the data in that database is always very easy to retrieve. Why? Because you have all of the Federation members keeping identical copies of it and making sure that they all keep identical copies of it through this consensus algorithm. So my idea was, well, what if in addition to transactions, you just store arbitrary data? And this is sort of what a file system is. It's just a way to write and read data in a way that's convenient. So the project was called Small FS. The idea was there's Bitcoin apps, as they get more complicated, are going to need to have a way to store data in a way where the user can always retrieve it. Good example of this is the configuration file of that software. Like, you're going to have your mnemonic seed, which is where you derive your private keys from and your public keys from. But you're also going to have like other configuration data that's specific to your instance of the wallet. So what you typically would do is you would just store your mnemonic seed, right, by writing down the words. But then if you like lose your phone, or like you get some kind of error, or something bad happens, if you want to recover, you're also going to probably want to get your configuration, or like your little database of like, important data that is relevant to you. And that's sort of how I got to Small FS. Is what if we had this highly available storage system that let you write and read data from, that was backed by a federation, and you could pay for that storage in eCash. The reason why I want to keep it small and for like that specific use case is because I don't want to overburden the bandwidth of the federation, because that is still a finite resource between them in terms of the internet connection that they have between them, and also just like keep it sane. Like I didn't want people to put like movies and stuff on this, even though like adapting the protocol to that through IPFS potentially, like that would be possible. Somebody actually did do that. That was another project that somebody else did. But yeah, so yeah, I got the runner-up. It turned out that these other participants that I was talking to, one of them knew this startup that was that needed a Rust developer. Rob Hamilton, basically, he's a CEO, and ever since then, we got connected because I was helping them out with like some Rust stuff, and he was already working at a company, and he recommended me to Rob, and then Rob and I got to talking, and then like within a couple days, I just started working for them and just getting paid, just on contract, and it's just been a amazing experience so far.
Immediate experience too. Like the door was open. And it all lined up. And I think, like you mentioned before, that's part of the beauty of contributing in this open sourced world.
It really is.
The second that your merit is proved, it's going to lead to more people reaching out, being interested, and collaborating together.
Yeah, and don't be shy. Just put yourself out there. People are a lot nicer than you think. Sometimes they're mean, but just get over it. And if you do that, like, people will notice, especially if you you have good intentions and you work hard and you're competent, people will just show up and there's a lot of work to be done, and they'll pay you for it. So it's really just a matter of, focusing on one thing. And that's sort of what like really, I think why I had success is I just focused on Rust and Bitcoin. And because I saw that as like my edge, it's like, what is the one thing no one else is doing? And no one's doing Rust because it's like kind of hard. And no one's doing Bitcoin because it'll do chicken shit. And so if I do those two things, like I can definitely compete, And I just did that, during my time at Deal and prior to that as well. I've been learning Rust since 2018, really. But you just keep focusing on one thing and one thing only, and eventually, like, just good things will come to you. Yeah, like, really. The worst thing happens, and this has happened to me, is when you just get distracted, and there's lots of really cool things to work on, but like just really do one thing, and just get to it. Eventually you'll just be rewarded. So right now I'm working with this company called AnchorWatch. It's pre-seed. We have angel investment. We're looking to raise a seed round later this year. If we do that, that would be amazing, because it means we have runway for many years to like really launch the business. AnchorWatch is a company that is offering this new wallet called Trident Wallet. Trident Wallet is a multi-signature wallet, and the whole purpose of AnchorWatch is to offer a multi-signature wallet that has Bitcoin insurance built into it. So insurance for the Bitcoin themselves, not price.
Okay.
Meaning that if you use AnchorWatch and you pay for the insurance, if you ever lose the Bitcoin, we will make you whole again in dollars. And so this is really nice for custodians. This is really nice for trust funds, for anybody that wants to hold on to Bitcoin that wants to hold on to a lot of Bitcoin for a long time and have some level of assurance that there's not going to be an issue. In that, if they do get hacked, that we can just make them whole again, and they can just, they're made whole again. Right now, if you lose your Bitcoin, like, you're just kind of SOL, right? This is why people use exchanges, because the exchanges, even though they're custodial and they're centralized, if they're successful and they have like, they can make money, they can hire professionals to like look after all of this.
Yeah.
So what we're making is this wallet system. It's going to be open source, so anybody can run it. That makes it really easy for you to secure those Bitcoins. The twist on this, because there's lots of multi-signature wallets out there, is that we're using Miniscript. Miniscript is a compiler, meaning that it takes instructions and then compiles it down to, in this case, Bitcoin script. And in those instructions, you are specifying a spending policy for the Bitcoin, meaning that this particular Bitcoin right here can only be spent in this particular manner by these particular people at this particular time. When you start to lock that down, it's actually like pretty clear why those Bitcoin will not get stolen. And you can do all kinds of really interesting things. It's a smart contracting technology. Bitcoin does have smart contracts. They're just like much simpler than what is found on other chains. There's good reasons for that. But it still has enough programmability where you can do interesting things like time locks and hash locks and being able to spend from specific keys. So when you combine those things, you can actually make a pretty robust wallet system where, you have a pretty good degree of assurance that your Bitcoins won't get taken. And once you do that, if you price that risk accordingly, you can then charge a premium. And then that's when you have a viable business model. Then what you do is you take that money, that's the front office for an insurance company, and then you have the back office where they take that pool of money that just keeps accumulating, and you buy bonds and stocks and maybe Bitcoin, real estate.
Hopefully not payout claims.
Well, no, it's okay if you pay out claims as long as you price the risk accordingly and you understand what the likelihood of a payout is, then it's fine. I mean, this is how car insurance works. The downside of like insurance companies is that it kind of gets weird because like everyone starts buying each other's insurance. Which if only a couple people show up at a time to claim, it's fine. But then if everybody comes up to claim at the same time, then you can have a lot of problems. A really good example of this right now, and this is kind of grim. I'll use a less grim example, is California wildfires are making it impossible, or making it really expensive for insurance companies to insure those homes. So as a result, like if you want to build a house in California, it just now recently got that much more expensive to buy the insurance for the house. That's not good, especially if your house is like really expensive, which in California they are.
Well, and strategically, from what I understand, in California, there's a little bit of a game to be played where you are building houses in places that aren't safe for people to live out there, because those insurance companies make money from that.
That's the whole part of like, we're going to have like a fraud, department probably. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to think about very closely about making sure that's not going to be an issue. And if it is an issue, we have a way to deal with it. But this will be mostly aimed at like companies, so it'll be like a business to business type of interaction, meaning like we really know who they are. If we think that they committed fraud and we have evidence, like we can take them to court, at least in the United States. But the idea is to offer this to everybody in the world, and we're also going to open source it. So if we like get blown up, Rob, Nick, and I, and everybody else at the company, you'll still be able to download the software and then get your coins out. So you won't have to trust us that much.
Well, it's fantastic because it's a digital insurance, and you do have insurance for ASICs and rigs and mining operations, and there's ways that insurance companies are able to kind of fluctuate and make sure that at no point you're going to lose money if something bad happens. But there hasn't really been a touch to that in terms of the wallet where your Bitcoin is stored and what happens if that goes missing or if someone takes it.
Yeah, and one of the most awful things you hear in Bitcoin are when people lose them, and they either lose them to theft or incompetence. And both stories are always really, really, disheartening. But now with insurance, I think it's just going to be that much easier for people to consider Bitcoin, especially large companies that have a treasury. They don't want to buy real estate. They don't want to buy stocks. They don't want to buy bonds. But, you can buy Bitcoin. And if you're concerned about losing it, we have an awesome wallet system. Like the wallet we have is like really, really, really cool, I think. We got this design team to just, it has like a nautical theme to it.
AnchorWatch,
yeah. The topographical maps that you use for like charting waters, like that's the background.
That's cool.
It's like, this like aqua blue. I think it looks really great. And it will be easy to use. I've used so many wallets over the years, and they always have all these UI shortcomings. So the things that we can make, really, really improve on, we're going to do that. Nick, he's an amazing front-end developer. Rob is super smart. He's doing all the insurance side of it. He has a background in data science, so like statistics is his bread and butter. So I just feel really confident about this. Like I do try to temper my expectations and not try to fly off the handle, but I think this is going to end up being a really nice product that people are going to like. So I can't wait to put it out there. and have people use it and have it make owning Bitcoin that much easier. So right now we're still, the MVP is like almost kind of done. Like the basic functionality is all there. We're just sort of adding polish and a few final, and just adding features and features and features to make it as easy to use as possible. And it's really just been a fortuitous turn of events. Like I really did not have any expectations, of this working out, but I just really wanted to do it, and it did work out. And really happy about that.
Well, the beauty is that you did it in your own way, and that's the part that people have a hard time coping with. That's what you hear from successful people all the time. I mean, right now, two big ones are like Hormozy and Chris Williamson, and they picked their own thing, and they just put their head down and they worked and made it happen. And dude, it's inspiring, because the reason why I do this podcast is because, one, I need a never-ending educational source to learn about Bitcoin, everything that's related to Bitcoin. So what better way than to talk to people in the industry and people who are really smart? And two, it's also how I kind of create my image. Like wherever we go, like Plamenko is just somewhere lost in a conversation with someone. And it's this feeling of something that Nate and I talked about in our episode of just bringing a vulnerability to the table. And when I went to Miami this last time, it was interesting to hear from people talking about Stackin Sats and being like, oh, that's cool, Plamenko's doing it, to people being excited about it and being like, dude, keep at it. Like, you have your niche, your style, and few people have dubbed me the Lex Friedman of Bitcoin mining podcasts, which is like way too specific, so I don't even want that. And I want to do my own thing. And one day it'd be great to meet Lex, and even if it's just in passing, like we met Eric Weinstein. But basically, my whole tangent, the point to it, is that the real rewards and the success doesn't come until you truly let go and you find that thing that makes you you. And it can be, for some people, 70 different platforms, and for some people it can be one. But regardless, it's not going to happen unless you put yourself into it. And I'm really happy to see from my end, as a friend and someone in the industry from a different side, that you've been met with open arms. And finally, it's not just your friends being like, talk to Matthias because he's really fucking smart. It's people who know their shit like you know your shit, and you guys are in, no pun intended, consensus, having these difficult conversations and working together to improve things.
No, it's so much fun working on this stuff. It's I feel like I've just been accidentally training for it since like 2016, and I feel like, I don't know, there's something about not having expectations and still putting in everything you have into it, and just fucking whatever, dude, like whatever. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but you still gave it your all, like everyone will always respect that no matter what. But it's really really try to kill the expectations and just like how can you do the best job possible, and then go and do it. If more people did that, I think they'd be just so much happier, rather than trying to like visualize a future and, thinking, oh, this is going to happen to me if I do this. It's like, dude, it might not happen. But it's like you have no control over other people, anyways. So it's really just, like I said, just thinking about how can you do this the best way possible, the correct way possible, and just taking it from there. And if something is important to you, like you'll figure that out, how to do that. And it won't be hard. It'll be easy because it's important to you. So yeah, I really feel good about it. So,
well, it seeps too. It seeps in the sense that it might be starting with Bitcoin, but it develops into your personal relationships, what you find important. For me, it's pushing me further into fitness. I'm really big into my fitness. And now getting my, personal trainer certificate. Okay, let's do more. All right, I want to keep learning Python. Just learned about LN bits.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a Python space within Bitcoin. It never ends. And you're one of those friends who I can always converse with on that level, and it's because you do put in that work, and it's inspiring to me, and hopefully to everyone who is a part of your life and gets to have you around. And just wanted to give a nice shout out to Edwin for being so patient as to recording us. I think the longest episode of Stackin Sats.
Is it? Oh man, yeah, it is. Oh crap!
I know we didn't get to 3 hours, but there's always room for improvement, and we gotta break like a Balaji episode of like 6 hours.
I know. We gotta get Balaji on here. No, we didn't talk about LN bits. I think we can do that for another.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot in FediMint that we have to kind of go through and dissect. That's not going to be done in a half hour.
I think we should. So all I want to say about FediMint is that if you go to the Fedi BTC Twitter, they have a link there to their test flight, which is how you do test beta apps on iOS for your iPhone. And then you can download the wallet and check it out. It's basically all there. They haven't released it on mainnet. But maybe we can do an episode on FediMint once it releases on mainnet. Should be later this year, I think.
Yeah, and I think it'd be cool to visualize some of the things that we talked about in another episode to show people, the true quickness of Lightning, and to show kind of like how the FediMint app works and all these concepts to give an image to it. But with that being said, I'm super happy and thankful to have you on, Matthias, for round 2. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. I thank you for inviting me. I love coming on to here and just talking about Bitcoin and all the cool shit we're up to.
Yeah. Well, we'll do it again soon, and hopefully there's some more good news to share.
Yeah, I think so. All right.